you think boating is the great American sport for 1968, try this. Pontiac announces the great American sport for 1968. Wide tracking.
Let you and me go wide tracking, near and far.
What's wide tracking? It's the difference between plain, ordinary driving and driving a car like this new 1968 Pontiac Firebird. Wide tracking is the way the 68 Firebird handles, corners, and maneuvers with a new improved ride you won't believe until you try it. And there are 5 Firebirds to choose from, all magnificent. If you think you're ready for wide tracking, the great American sport, see your Pontiac dealer. Or don't you want to make waves? Pontiac introduced the 1969 Firebird, we couldn't build them fast enough. Some people had to wait. Well, the wait is over. Breakaway. Right now you can get immediate delivery on a brand new Firebird with smooth, positive, wide-track handling. And you can order up to a 345-horse Ram Air V8. Right now, you can get immediate delivery on a brand new Firebird. Impressed? That's nothing. Wait until you check your Pontiac dealer's prices. They'll practically let you write your own deal. And if you wait for a Firebird after that, mister, you may get left behind.
Break away in a wide track in Pontiac.
You've always wanted a car designed for you, at your kind of price, an easy price. And if Firebird Esprit has a brand new interior, if it handles and rides like it was part of you, with a look about it that reaches into tomorrow, then Firebird is your car. Because the wide track people have a way with cars, your way. And Firebird Esprit was built for you by Pontiac, of course. Pontiac's new Firebirds are here, with Firebird Esprit and all its luxury. With the response of the Formula Firebird. And the very special driving experience called Trans Am. The new Firebirds are here to help make this Pontiac's best year yet.
Pontiac Firebird for 1981, a legend in its own time. turning heads with one of the sleekest profiles going. Taming the road with taut radial tune suspension. And now, Pontiac enhances this legend with a computer-assisted V6 engine. Firebird for 1981. With Pontiac know-how, the legend lives.
Something new is taking place out there. Put your ear to the ground and you'll hear it. The 1982 Firebird. The most electrifying design in a North American car in over a decade. The Firebirds. Wicked.
There's a moment in time, maybe once in your life, feel that you're ready to fly.
Set your sights, you know what's right.
You know you're ready for the ride of your life.
The bold new style and legendary performance of the 1991 Pontiac Firebird looks even better with big cash back.
horsepower comes to life. Ram air induction turns air into fuel in a rush. Firebird, you're ready to fly.